All right, says we're live.
It does. Says
What's
the
up,
broadcast is live.
everybody?
I see some faction chilling already in the comments.
Nice.
Yeah, Warhammer. Let me just double check we're live. I know we are, but man, you'd
You
be
never
surprised.
know.
Yeah.
Who was it? Was it with
It was with Chronic.
Chronic, right? We
Oh
were
my
recording for like an hour,
Yeah.
and it was really good conversations. We're like, all right, well, we got to start this again.
Yep.
Ever since that day, you're always like double checking, making sure.
Yeah. Ever since that day, I bought StreamYard, and it's been a-okay. Yep, we're live. Cool. Yeah, StreamYard is definitely the way to go. I'm pretty sure every YouTuber that I've talked to in the CNFT space uses StreamYard. But anyways, guys, we are with Prosperia. We're with Cleanup, and we are doing the Lucky Ocean podcast. I don't even know which one this is. Is this like 7, 8, 9 now?
Like, so, well, you recorded like 2 almost last week, right? You had interviews or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And so, do you want to count those, or is this just strictly like a me and you sort of?
I don't even know if I count them. I don't call them like the podcast because I feel like the Monday is the podcast, but at the same time, our interviews are kind of podcast like, because I don't really love the whole like grilling with questions. I kind of like vibing out with people,
Right. And I definitely like it's cool to talk about your project, and trust me, you're gonna have plenty of time to talk about project, but also like I love to pick your brain about real world stuff, and like common stuff,
I love it. Conversation is art,
Right.
so
Right.
I think conversation is much better than shilling. You guys know I love Prosperia and I want people to be involved. I don't have to go and we don't have to talk about that for an hour. Yeah, conversation is great.
Yeah, I see the Kong in the background. You owning some Kongs?
I do, yeah. Ape Society, yeah. I'm very particular. It's funny about Ape Society because people either really love it or really hate it. And I had an influencer the other day. That was his first question. He's like, I have to know, how loyal are you to Ape Society? I said, man, I don't even know how to answer that, because was he going to tell me that it did something bad to him or what? I don't know. But I've got a couple that have the suit. And then my favorite one is the one with the suit, the cigar, and the aviator glasses.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what it is with those, but when you get them on canvas, I don't know. It's just very unique. I'm not a big ape guy. I don't have chill Kongs. Love chill Kongs. Don't have them. But Ape Society to me just has a very unique, they do this whole fireplace mantle thing. And that's exactly where it looks good in my house, above the fireplace. So it's just, I don't know what it is about them, but I love them for the art. There's no reason beyond that. I just think they look good in my house. So.
Awesome, dude. And you also have your trucking business. Are you still doing that?
Yes. Yes. I own 4 trucks. I have a 4th new one coming in a month or 2 that runs refrigerated fleets, an amazing business. Do about $1 million a year gross, and it sustains me to be able to do this, which art, I really love more than anything. This is what I would do if I got paid nothing and didn't have to worry. This is what I would do. So I'm very fortunate, very blessed to have a company behind me that my wife and I built that is doing really well for us financially, and it allows me to get back to my roots, which I used to be a filmmaker. But as I found out, building a $250,000 documentary does not pay the bills. It was an amazing project. We had killer team. It's been seen almost 1 million times on YouTube. I mean, it's a pretty serious production, but it's not going to go pay the bills. So we went and did this because it allowed us to stay on the road, and we've learned a lot about business management, and that business really keeps us going. And I literally don't do anything. I talk to my drivers maybe 10 minutes a week, and that business continues doing really well for us. So yes, do own a freight logistics company.
Well, that's awesome. So I must say that is it has to be the first in the space, right? You have to be the only one that can have that claim. Is that correct? Probably.
I don't know. I would say that it does give me a perspective that makes me wonder how a lot of projects are, how they make it. And I think they make it by the seat of their pants, honestly, because you're essentially building a several $100,000 to multiple $1 million business in a matter of months when you're doing a project of this. And we're actually a small project. I think I look at us as a small project. Prosperia is like Reno, Nevada. They've got this sign. It's like biggest little city in the world. That's what Prosperia is. We're the biggest little project in the world. Some of these projects kind of stumble into this success because they have amazing art. And I'm so happy to see this great art coming into CNFT. We're getting a lot of Ethereum type art, Solana type art, which is amazing. But because of that good art, they're generating hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And there's not the experience to know how to build business infrastructure for that. And I bring that with me. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've learned from those, and I've had a lot of successes, and I've learned from those. So it's certainly an eye-opening experience to see, in many cases, kids building several $100,000 businesses in a span of 2 months, so that's why I love crypto. It's such a wild west where so much is possible that wouldn't be possible in a traditional world.
It's a little scary sometimes too, thinking about children running around with, a couple $100,000, $1 million. And it's just like, yeah, we're trusting this like 17-year-old. He's still in high school. He's got his homework, he's still going to baseball practice. It's like, it's cool. It's really cool. It's just, it blows my mind sometimes.
And I think that's why there's a lot of rugs, because I really, in the very beginning of my own process, I'm trying to understand some of these rugs are pretty successful mint cycles, and I've tried to psychologically get in my head, why would you run from a project that you've got all these people crawling over glass to support, and everybody's trying to make things work, and you've got all these people invested? Long term, there's so much potential. Why would you walk for 30, 40, 50, $100,000? I know to a lot of people that's a lot of money. To me, that's a lot of money. But to rip off so many people and burn bridges and destroy, just cause so much destruction for such an insignificant amount of money in the grand scheme of things, I think as a result of that, you have people who've never had that kind of money, and I'm going to rent a yacht with it is a different perspective with that younger, inexperienced age. I think that's probably why a lot of that happens. But I think ultimately it's what separates projects that go on long term versus those that are just quick flips and don't have any kind of a roadmap or long-term plan.
Yeah, like, when I was young, it was like flipping baseball cards, basketball cards, and like lemonade stands and like car washes. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how we made our money. And now these kids, like, there's kids that are like 13, 14 that are really good at art, that are really good at doing that. And so it's kind of weird because, like, I'm used to having like an allowance, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And these kids are rolling around with like 100 G's in crypto. It looks like Mark Such sells trucking insurance as his main gig.
Oh, nice. Well, I pay $500 a month per truck for insurance, so I'd be open to offers.
So you got the hookup. Also, Michael Phoenix is also a owner operator truck driver and a crypto enthusiast.
That's awesome.
So you got a lot of truckers rallying together here.
There's like 3 million CDL holders, and when they stop, they get online and they're always trying to, truck drivers, actually, they're not like they used to be. Truck drivers today my trucks are $160,000 townhomes on wheels. They're automatic. They've got Joe Rogan or whatever you want to listen to all night. It's not you bouncing in a cab over. It's a good living. It's just not fun being on the road all the time.
Yeah.
But I've been really surprised at how many professional drivers are really knowledgeable about crypto.
So with your trucking business, it's been very successful. You've continued to branch it out. You even did your series on it. Mm-hmm. What made you kind of want to branch into crypto and start this other kind of, side hustle or maybe even main 50-50 hustle now? Because it's definitely a lot.
Well, earlier, I think before we went live, we were talking about how conversation is art and story is art. And Jenna and I, my wife, used to work in PR. I used to write TV ads and all. I used to write press communications, public relations communications. So writing is really what my education is. As well as I have some college in art too, but I just went to college for the classes I needed to learn, like color theory and things like that. So story is really kind of my passion. And last year, about the same time that I started getting into crypto, I was addicted to this game called Elite Dangerous. I don't know if you guys are like you could have a lot of time to play Elite Dangerous, and my wife is pregnant. In fact, she's due this week. So that took us off the road last year. And so I'm playing Elite Dangerous day in and day out, and which it can take you hours just to travel, not even 5% of it's literally a replica of our galaxy. And I found it riveting that you had this open world where if you wanted to create revenue for yourself by transporting passengers and make that your business, you could do that. If you got tired of that and you wanted to go mine resources in an asteroid belt, you could do that. You could just go explore. You could do anything. So I started writing this book, science fiction book, kind of marrying that to like a cyberpunk vibe with more of an integrated, deeper story into it. And it was my plan to release that book sometime this year. But of course, publishing a book and all that, so much work, and that colliding with the fact that I was running across the hallway in December telling my wife that I sold a JPEG of a llama for $2,300. It was kind of like, hey, we've got an amazing 85% of this really epic story about Earthers leaving the solar system we really live in, Sol, to go to the nearest solar system, but they accidentally travel for 600 years to a different galaxy and have to build a space station called Prosperia. Let's just make this epic 5-year project. So that's kind of the transition of being on the road to now being able to utilize both my passion to write and tell story, long form story arcs, with visual motion and graphic art, that we can spend the next few years building this world out. So we just got through a mint yesterday that we sold that out in 49 minutes, which is amazing. But to me, we haven't even began in this project. I think to the team, for us, we're like, okay, now, everybody take a breath. Let's get started. That's kind of how we feel about where we are with this project. So hopefully that's a long answer to a short question. Hopefully that gives you an answer though.
No,
I bloviate a lot, by the way.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I find myself kind of getting off track and stuff like that. And I kind of circle back and I'm like, well, where were we at? You said Elite Dangerous. Elite Dangerous, honestly, one of my favorite games of all time. I love Interstellar. I love, there's something about space. The fact that we know so little about it.
Yeah.
And the fact that like nothing is fully answered, in space. And so there's always a wonder for us to go to the stars or to wonder what is out there. And so your lore is pretty deep from what.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could, I'm totally going to nerd out here for a second, but if you had a ship that 1,700, there's 1,700 people on the ship and they exist to go build a society on another planet. So they have all the construction zones, drones, they have all the capabilities on this ship, but you accidentally go into another galaxy. You don't know how you got there. You end up in a solar system without an inhabitable planet. What do you do? And the idea that these drones would go, instead of constructing buildings on a planet, construct a 22 square mile superstructure the size of Manhattan. Think of the world of possibilities that opens up for lore, because you get to just, the community gets to just dream up everything that happens from that point forward. And that's really kind of what Elite Dangerous was to me. You could, in your own imagination, make yourself anything. You know, you could just be a mercenary, you could build an empire, you could do anything. And that's really kind of what I wanted this project to be.
Now, are you more of, okay, so what is your ship of choice? Like, okay, so if you truck drive, right, there's no way you're holing around a beluga, okay, and like just chauffeuring people all day. Like, although that's very lucrative, right, in the game. Like,
Yeah.
there was a couple routes that were just like money makers, right?
Yeah.
So you would travel all the way there, move all your stuff there, and you take this beluga liner or whatever, the Orca, and you would just like travel with people all day. I was more of I was a bounty hunter, you know. So I would get in, you know, with my anaconda or whatever, and I would sit there and just hunt people all day. And
yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The only thing that frustrated me about that is once you start moving up on that track, you can't go anywhere online without being pestered, you know.
Yeah.
So you couldn't be like, okay, today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to spend a few hours just effing around.
Yeah.
I don't want to get this video demonetized like his last one was.
Oh,
but
he saw the D-bag one.
Yeah. So that was the only thing I didn't like about that. But yeah, the hunt was great. I did sometimes ferry passengers around just for the hell of it. If it was convenient and there was a passenger that needed to go somewhere, by somewhere I needed to go, I would do that just for kicks. But I did all of it. I did mining, bounty hunting. I was even a fuel rat for a little while. Yeah, I did all of it, man.
fuel rat, like I've never had one of them save my butt.
Never had to be saved, but I've saved
No.
someone.
Dude, that's so great. And like, okay, so Nick, do you know what a fuel rat is?
No, I'm kind of in the dark when you guys are talking about this game.
Can we break it down? Me and you together, just kind of attack him with a bunch of information. So
I love that we're talking Elite Dangerous. This is
Elite
great.
Dangerous, for everybody out there, is open as open can be. You know, you have like this little tiny crappy shit right at the start, but boy, is it like fun to just goofball around in. And so you can do anything. You can become a bounty hunter, but your first couple of missions, you're just kind of learning how to jump drive, right? Yeah. And so just kind of traveling at light speed to get to where you need to go. And you know, from there, you get this ship, and you know, the world is your oyster, man. It's so wide open.
It is literally I mean, it can't be an exact replica of our galaxy, but it has roughly the same number of stars, all of which, and it's like 400 million or 400 billion or something like that.
Yeah.
All of which you can go to.
Right.
Crazy.
And so
that reminds me of another game. Somebody will know what I'm talking about, but anyways, go on.
Like Eververse or something?
No, it was this game that actually like flopped on release, and then actually added some utility back to it. It was like a space traveling game, and you could have like your own.
Oh, No Man's Sky.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're talking about No Man's Sky. So No Man's Sky is like a very arcadey version. This is very much like a simulation. Okay. And have you played it in VR yet?
No.
Okay. That's crazy. Okay, so No Man's Sky is a good game now. It's very good when you're playing with friends as well. Elite Dangerous is like a simulation. It's more for if you're gonna get high. If you're gonna get high, and you just kind of want to travel a little bit and like look at the stars and see some crazy things. But each space station has its own economy, right? And so when trading, you could harvest resources like he would from one space station, travel like light years away, and the things that you harvest could be something that are very valuable there. So you would travel and you would just trade things, right? And then you could bounty hunt, destroy other ships. You can travel like by black holes. You can get interdacted by alien life forms. You know what I'm saying? And so there's so many things to do on this game, and
yeah,
to me it's a shame that not everybody plays it, because
the fuel rat part, to me, is interesting because it has very it has a lot of very realistic mechanics. You have to scoop your fuel off of stars. You don't have infinite fuel. Now, as you progress in the game, you get bigger ships, bigger fuel scoops, and things like that. But you can get, if you venture too far from where most of humanity or most of civilized life is, and you run out of fuel, you're dead in the water. You cannot. There's all you can do is convince someone else to come out to you, which can take days, like literal days of our time, of loneliness, because there's nothing between you and civilized society, wherever star systems they are. Those are fuel rats that bring you fuel. So, and you could, of course, quit the game, but if you do, you lose everything. You lose everything you're hauling. You lose your ship. You lose your resources, all of it, your money, all of it. So
does it save though? Like, could you turn the game off and turn it back on?
No.
Or so it starts over every time you start the game?
Well, if you run out of fuel, the only way is to basically kill yourself, self-destruct. You shut the game off, and there's not any way out of it. I don't remember exactly how the mechanics of that work, but there's no way out of it. There's this whole community that exists of fuel. There's a website where you can call a fuel rat, because if you get stuck out there, you're finished. So it's, I don't know. So anyway, I thought, what if you married that open world ecosystem with this cyberpunk vibe, which I love. I was born in 79, so synthwave and that whole, not dystopian, but just dark 80s type Neo Tokyo City. If you married those two vibes together, what would you get? And that's what I turned this into.
So you had some sort of background before you started this, because I noticed you started kind of a similar thing that other people have been doing with your cards and or the mint, the passes.
Multi-pass, yeah.
Yeah. So what was your first kind of introduction to NFTs, and were you always on Cardano?
Yeah, almost entirely, always on Cardano. I actually started, on Ethereum. And the first time I had a failed transaction that cost me hundreds of dollars, I was like, no, I'm not just throwing my money away, and I was trying to do day trading and stuff. And there was, there's a little bit of money to be made, but you have to have so much money to sit there and do real-time trading to make, you got to have so much volume to make it really worth it. Otherwise, you're just making $10, $20, $30 here and there. Cardano, I think it was something that Charles, I say Charles like I know him, but I think we all reference him as Charles, right? It was something he said, that it was a video or something where I was like, okay, this guy's legit. Like he really is building something long-term that's unique. And so that's when I kind of started dipping into ADA a little bit, which was great because that was right before it hit $3. But I'm one of those people that have bought it in the 70s, 60s and 70s, but also bought at $3. So I don't know where I am. I've bought on both ends of that spectrum. But once I started buying ADA, then you kind of start getting into the community a little bit. Then you start getting into NFTs, and then you're like, oh my God, like why was I ever anywhere else? And it's the only reason that I even look at the price of ADA now is because I'm having to pay developers and things like that. Outside of that, it would have no impact on me whatsoever. I'm just in the community. And if it's 70 cents, I'm still doing what I'm doing with CNFTs. And if it's $2, I'm still doing what I'm doing with CNFTs. And I think that vibe is in many ways universal. I think we all just, wag me. Like everybody, it's just like a roulette table or a craps table. we're all losing together and we're all winning together. So there's still that global excitement all the way around the table. And I feel like that's really unique to Cardano.
I don't even know what the price of ADA is. Like, I'm in the same boat as you. It's like,
it's better you don't know.
It's like 70 cents probably, right?
78, I think. Yeah.
Dude, it's like, how am I not going to throw my 401k at it? Right? Like, would I be crazy? You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, 70 cents is like, that's ultimate buy. It's like, if you were to get it now, right, it would be well past.
Oh, it's amazing in that direction.
Yeah.
But I have to cut $150,000 check to a game developer. So it sucks the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think the general consensus is that the ape society back there, it's always going to hold its value, you know? So if I can't make good money on ADA right now, I'm just going to hold it right there. You know, that ape's never going to be worth $30. It's always going to be like, I'm pretty confident it's always, or 30 ADA, that it's always going to be between 1,600 and 5,000.
Well, so, not financial advice, but yeah.
Yeah, not financial advice for sure. That's just my own experience with it. But I feel like I'm a part of something, you know, and I feel like we're all kind of winning and losing or taking risk and doing the dance together. And I think that that's a really special vibe. And I being in Ethereum and a few other places, it just seemed to be a lot more elbow throwing, and it didn't have that cohesiveness that we see in Cardano. So, you know, I've never looked back. I got rid of MetaMask. I don't have any other wallet. I only deal with Cardano now, and I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Is there on Cardano, is there a project maybe you had your eye on that you did not get to mint, that you were always like interested in and just never got the chance to mint? Or
the one that got away?
Yeah.
The one that I didn't get to mint?
Yeah. Something like maybe you didn't get it into, that you were kind of like, man, I kind of wanted to get into this. You know, is there a particular project that you thought about? Or
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm full degen. Like, I get into like everything. So I don't even need money, but if I can flip for 30 ADA, I don't know what it is. Like, I'm gonna do it, you know. So if it's disco or like I would aped deep into lazy llamas, which ended up working out amazing. I mean, that was such a great ride. I got a gold llama and all this, you know, I got all these serums, and like, it's just so stupid, but it's such a rush, and it's so much fun to be going through that with everybody else. So I pretty much buy, like, mint anything that I can if I have the time. There's not really been something where I've been like, you know, Mechanism would probably be, I didn't get on their whitelist. So in recent times, that was one that I really thought was unique and missed out on. But at a 30,000 foot view, I couldn't point to something and say that I wished that I did, but didn't. So I always find a way to get on the whitelist, except for that one. Without grinding too. I don't grind. I just find a way.
Nick, did you mint anything this week?
Well, it's Monday, but do you mean last week?
Like last week, yeah. Okay. Since we last spoke.
Insane.
Yeah, I minted Omega Corp. Omega Corp, I don't know how it's doing right now. Actually, let me pull that up. We can go check it out together. But what do you think of Omega Corp? Have you seen it?
I have. I'll be honest with you. I have not had a lot of time for anything else this last week. Excuse me. I know their volume's doing really well. Omega Corp, and what was the other one? Omega Corp, and there was one other one.
Not the floor I was expecting, but not horrible.
Well, you know what? Everybody's floor has been tough. There's just, there's been so many projects. You know, it seems like a month ago where you could kind of plan for Saturdays, and you knew the 2 or 3 that you wanted to focus on that Saturday. But this last 9 days has just been absolutely bonkers. and everybody's going in hard too, because the supply hasn't really been very high with a lot of these projects, which I like because it provides some exclusivity. But the problem is with everybody going so hard, they're having to sell so they can go ape into the next one. That's kind of what I'm seeing in our community. And I think that's really kind of playing a role. Plus with ADA being at 70 cents or whatever, I think that's kind of playing a role with some floors.
I always like to go look at the analytics and see what our volume's doing. And anybody who's never done this, don't pay attention to this one right here, because this is a daily and it's not fully updated yet. So it looks like we're crashing in volume, but we're really not. Give it a day, let it catch up. But we're at like the medium to all-time highs, honestly. Like our volume's doing pretty well. Like, back when, what was this, September? Like this was a peak. This was an all-time high for September, and we're hitting it pretty consistently, at least the last few weeks. So it's interesting to see.
But you have to think like, so, and this is what makes those days before, let's say January, super exciting and super inspiring, I guess you would say, because that was pre-smart contracts. Yeah. Smart contracts, I think you guys can tell exactly when smart contracts really took hold, right? So no, before that, January, right there. That whole spike right there is nothing but smart contracts. And ever since then, you can kind of see the dip. And then, but with smart contracts, there was a little bit of a boost. Now I think what we need is for people to spread the word of NFTs to people who might not know about it, right? And obviously you have to offer something for everybody, essentially, at that point. So if we want to see the next kind of shelf, because you can see the shelf that we have built right there, if you want to get to another plateau, I think that we're going to have more people kind of come into the space. And so now would be a good time to welcome people with open arms, especially people who had to deal with the other side meant from the Bored Apes, right? And stuff like that. That was a pretty rough hit from what I heard. And then I looked at some of the actual plots of land on the other side, and it was kind of underwhelming art. I'll say that, for millions and millions of dollars.
It's a very politically peaceful way of saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think adoption is key. And I think that CNFTs are going through a period of growing up. We're starting to see what feels to me like a lot more maturity. I mean, if you guys remember in the end of January and February, it was all like stuff there was so much stuff that you could buy off Fiverr. I mean, there was some good projects, don't get me wrong. There's great projects, always are, in and out, but you would just go like weeks of just this stuff that was like not good, and now we're in this period of time where the things that you guys are talking about on your program and that you see on other YouTube, you're like, oh my, we're getting there, we're starting to really grow up. So I think and hope that helps. Having the whole thing with Clay that happened, I think that's going to bring some adoption. I just hope that ADA, again, not that most Cardano holders really care about the price, because we're all long-term thinkers, I think, for the most part. But I do think externally, a lot that look at ADA's trend line are kind of like, do I really want to get into that? So it's really kind of incumbent on project teams and artists to sell their project beyond the trend line of ADA. And that's why we're kind of looking at a very deep story. It's something it's an experience that you're immersed in, not just dates on a calendar that the team makes a lot of money and then we go home. This is an immersive experience. We really want to sell that beyond and utilize that to bring in more adoption. I think that's really important. So now if ADA goes, up above $10, $20, while this growing up is happening, and some of these other, and I think I think this summer is really exciting for Cardano. Then I hope we do start seeing that growth you're talking about.
Yeah, just to touch on like the Clay Nation growing with Snoop Dogg. I was actually like, I don't watch TV too much, but I do like to hang out with my mom, and she always has really interesting shows, and I always love whatever she's watching. It's always interesting. And she was watching something with Snoop Dogg on, and he was wearing his Bored Ape Yacht Club shirt, and I was like, let's go, like let's represent, like let's go Snoop, right? And I was just praying. I knew it wasn't gonna happen, but I was just praying he would say something about Clay Nation, like shout out my Clay, something, but like, obviously he's not going to do that, but it's really cool, and it's so annoying to say we're early, but it's so true. It's so true. We're not even at Ethereum levels, and Ethereum I don't think has peaked either. So
agreed. But if you look at I hope this isn't taken the wrong way. Well, I'll talk about a Solana project for a second. I'm not for or against Solana. I would imagine there's some upset people because the switch keeps getting flipped, but I don't really know the whole story about that. But anyway, there's a project on Solana called, oh man, it's going to drive me crazy. Yazoo Corp, YAZ, either I or U. Unbelievably amazing. Like, oh my God, if you want to see, let me see if I can pull it. I can send it to you maybe.
You can also share your screen if you want to do that.
Let's see.
I'm trying to spell it.
YAKU Corp.
YAKU Corp. And then
yeah.
Soul.
Go to their website. And they have like 100,000 in their Discord. But the quality of the metaverse that they're building and actual showcasing real use of it right now is unbelievable. But they're still at the beginning.
Ooh.
This thing looks really cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Final Fantasy, of like the 7 remake, It looks really real, like futuristic rather. Really clean.
Yeah, it's I want to see if I can pull up some of their they've shown actual gameplay. Not just videos of game, but I mean like really functioning, walking around rooftops. And what they're doing is they're even going and getting other gaming companies or protocol lending entities or projects to sponsor entire buildings in their metaverse, which is totally outside of the box thinking, where, in a real world, you would see like this, if you went into, especially some Asian cities, where there's a lot of advertising on the buildings, or, which I think is really cool, especially for what we're doing. But they're doing in that they're bringing that advertising into their world and using it to fund the development of their world. So you look at where they're at, and they're still at the beginning, and think about how early we are in Cardano, because this is the kind of thing that'll eventually be here. And they're only just getting started with theirs.
Well, speaking of just getting started, you just finished your mint, and man, like, I don't know what you can kind of touch on and what you want to kind of keep for secrecy or for hype later or whatever, but what else can we expect to come, I guess, in the next month or 2 months?
Well, our focus really over the next month or two is building the backbone for our ecosystem. Every project says they're unique. I like to think that we're uniquely unique, because in order for the things that we want to happen a year or 2 or 3 years from now to happen, we have to have this really profoundly detailed backbone as its ecosystem. And so we're building like an actual stock market in our world that this functions on. So the Prosper token, which I think we've doled out almost 10 million of through community rewards and things like that. It hits DEX on May 9th. We actually have a pre-sale on that going right now that starts in a week, or I think it's going right now. But we'll have a marketplace where you can actually buy pre-minted, already minted in-world assets. And those are businesses like our Zepper. One of the companies that builds the Zeppers in the lore is Mando's. And Mando's is an acquirable asset in the game. There's a lot of hoops you have to go through that. You have to acquire resources that another faction may have control over. But once you work your way into a position where you can acquire that asset, you then get royalties on the races. So there's a lot of mechanics like that that take enormous thought on how to interweave all of it. So we're really kind of working on building that whole infrastructure so that it's not just a gaming aspect, which the gaming aspect is huge and very, very expensive. We're talking millions of dollars. Anybody who thinks they're just going to go say the word meta, and that's just going to magically make it happen, hasn't really set in, hours and hours of dev calls with gaming studios. They don't understand it takes millions of dollars, but not just the visuals and the functionality. It's what is underneath it. What is it what's the interaction? What is the utility that social activity is revolving around? And that's kind of what we're spending the next month or two, really kind of fine tuning how we want to think that through, and then building components around that, like racing. That is one component. So we want to build those components over the next year or two, and then ultimately tie all those components together. So that's kind of where our time is in the next month or two. And maybe that was a little too inside baseball, and it's not very sexy, but it's necessary. And that's kind of where our focus is right now.
I appreciate it just being real, like if I were to hear like, like, oh, well, we're going to have the metaverse ready by next week. So I'd be like, nah, like get out of here. Like I like hearing that.
Yeah. It's a very realistic approach. I do think that certain components are very realistic, but also you have to think about the fact that where's the technology going to be in January or February? And it's not going to be where it is today. So you have to really think through, like all of our assets. They have to be built for Unreal Engine. They have to be built for Unity. They have to be ported to any possible door that they need to walk through. Now, so our Zeppers, they're done that way. The characters, they're full 3D, full dimension. We've even animated them already. But from head to toe, their eyes move, their hair moves. Everything is ready to go through that door. But that door may look different a year from now. So it's not just the complexity and the cost of building an environment that we can all interact with, but trying to understand our assets as they exist now. Where will the technology be a year from now? And are those going to be compatible with that? Plus that whole ecosystem that connects it all together. It's a lot to really ponder while building this epic story too. And that's why when I say we're the biggest little project in the world, it's because we haven't really wanted to go pump to 10, 20,000 Discord. We haven't spent anything on marketing. We don't have a big Twitter following. And that's because we really enjoy this kind of smaller, organic. We're having to walk everybody through what the project is. And you're starting to get this adoption where there was 100 people who understood it. Then there's 300 people who understood it. Now there's 600 people that understand it. And then all of a sudden you're going to have 1,500 people that understand it, and they can help walk the next 1,500 people into that understanding, because it's not something you could just put on the shelf like ketchup and have someone walk in and say, that's ketchup. With us, you put us on the shelf and I have no idea what that is, so it's definitely a long-term process, and we're taking it step by step.
So, you seem to be like a pretty busy guy, and I'm very much the same, busy. But I also find myself like, I don't know if it's just roll with me with this one. So, I struggle with being satisfied. You know what I mean? Like yes. I will accomplish things and I will feel good for about 2 minutes. And then I'm like, what next?
For sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
And you seem like you're busy. Is that kind of your mentality too? Like, do you struggle with being satisfied?
Oh, absolutely.
Or
Absolutely. I think, the fact that us being such a small project pushed out nearly 300,000 ADA in assets last night or yesterday in 49 minutes was pretty remarkable. We don't have a bunch of people pushing us. We're not shilling everywhere. And I think everybody wanted to kind of afterwards just be like, okay, this was epic. Not me. I mean, to me, it was, yes, that's epic, but it's, let's go. We've got to, like, I've got let's move on to other things. It wasn't to me a celebratory moment. It wasn't, I don't drink, but it wasn't, let's pour some champagne and celebrate. To me, it was like, okay, let's go. We got that out of the way. Let's go on to the next thing. Certainly. And that's a case with everything. It's not like I don't think we're ever going to reach a point where I could say this project's done. I have some places I want to go with it, but I think that we can always continue going. And that's the same with everything else. And probably my wife, it drives my wife crazy because she's the opposite. She's super focused on one thing. And when that thing's done, she can sit down and take a breath and cross it off the list. I'm doing 95% of that thing and then jumping into the next to do 95% of it, So fortunately I have a good team behind me that is filling in the gaps of the other few percent, but I definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what Rockstar has been doing with what is it, 5? Grand Theft Auto 5. They're just always building and building, and they've kept the game alive and strong for such a long time by just adding more and more and more. And I also think, human beings kind of all have that. We're never satisfied. And I think that's why milestones are so important too. Like you said, like 100 people, at first, like when you're just starting off, that's awesome. But then you want to grow to 500. And then once you hit that, that's awesome. But then you want to hit 1,500. And I do think that this is also why it's important for people to start kind of small. Like you started small with the multi-passes, and then you went a little bit with a little larger drop with the Zeppers after that. And I kind of think that that's the best way to approach building a community as well. There's so many people that want to jump into a 10K collection, and it's like, I just found out who you were last month. Why? Like, and I don't know. I think,
I think
milestones are really important.
It takes a lot of the personality out of the community too, because you as a team, or even you as your OG list or your core list, you cannot know 10,000 people, and of course you never will either. But man, there's like 600 or 700 in our server that I could tell, that I know who I kind of have a vibe for what their background is, where they live, and that's really remarkable to have that kind of a connection with so many people. And it's because we have had that sort of small scaling. And then, so now they get the whole project, they get us, they know the objectives, and they are now the front lines for all the new people coming in. And so that relationship continues to build from the core community. You can't do that if you go, buy couple thousand bots to then pad the number and then get yourself up to 10,000. Not to say that can't be successful. It depends on what your goals are, what your objectives are. If it is to just go sell a shit ton of assets and move on, then, then your objective is accomplished, I suppose. But if you have something long-term that you're looking to do like this, you have to be very strategic with the type of community that you build. Or else it's not going to work. And even in this process we're in, it's very difficult and it is a grind. But it's so rewarding to go through it, I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to say too, if anybody has any questions in the chat, you can feel free to ask. We're gonna keep, doing the thing that we do, but I just wanted to let you guys know that, this is your time to ask any questions you have. I don't want you guys to leave this space and be like, damn, I wish he asked this. Like, just ask it.
So what is your favorite part that you personally produce with the project, as far as like
definitely the characters.
Okay.
the characters are my part of the project. And it was, by the way, before I forget, I do want a Grand Theft Auto 6. But I just wanted to drop that comment. But you're right. I love what they're doing, but I want a Grand Theft Auto 6. Yeah, the characters for sure. And part of that is just because of the way that I had to absolutely dedicate myself to zero sleep and very laborious, monotonous training of videos after videos after videos, watch to learn Blender and, Final Cut Pro and After Effects, Apple Motion, all that stuff I've been doing for years. But shaping and molding was kind of a new animal to me. And once I got through weeks and weeks and weeks of just self-teaching, then it was sitting down and actually shaping the body of Ada, who is our first character. She's the redhead. You probably see she's absolutely gorgeous, but shaped her from top to bottom, and I mean, like really shaped every little detail. My wife would walk in and be like, "What am I looking at here?" And I'd be like, "Hey, she's got to be real." So that is the characters are definitely I have a very special connection to them because they're very tied to the lore and the story. But also when you build something like that from nothing, you don't really know. You can kind of in your mind say, I want to start this female character to have a certain look, but at some point she's going to pivot. Like Ada, this picture you're looking at right here, where she's holding the multipass, she actually has a very, she almost has like an Asian structure to her face. And it just, you can't really tell. If you look real close, you can tell, but just marrying sort of a European and Asian bone structure, it got a very unique look on her face. So when you go through that process to get an end result, there's a very deep connection with that character. And then having her so interwoven into the story, she's Iron Hands, by the way, is her faction. But those characters are definitely the part that I'm fully responsible for. They're the part I think that have the most emotional connection to the story, and they're the part that I'm most emotionally connected to. And she is, because she's number one, is truly special because she kind of set the tone and the pace for the whole collection, for all the characters.
So is this also Ada in another form?
No,
or
that is Brooke.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a different character.
Gotcha. And then, so the synths I was reading up on, and there's going to be these war mods. And the synths, when you mint them, or at least this is the plan, the war mods are going to have a shot at being either added with the mint or that you'll get them separately, right? They'll be airdropped during the mint or something like that.
Yeah, if we can make that work. I don't want it to be a situation where you have to go pay for that again after it. And that's not a slap at any project that does that. I think projects have different reasons for doing different things. For me, it feels like I just don't want to mint the second part of it again. You make that initial purchase. I think we want to create some perks. I think the question that we're going through right now is, because we're going to need so many characters over the next few years for the things that we want to happen in Prosperia, you can't just have 5,000 characters. With the Zepper, you need that Zepper to race. You have to have a Zepper. There's only 3,550. When you connect your wallet, if there's not a Zepper in your wallet, you're not going to get that low poly version in the game. So we can't just have 5,000 characters. And plus, do I want Ada in her nice sundress out in the galaxy conducting warfare? I don't know. So we're kind of thinking through, can we be developmentally ready for that type of exchange of asset? NFT Maker Pro is not ready for it, and we use NFT Maker Pro right now. Do we need to go through a more customized minting process? Or can we go ahead and do those characters as kind of the lore, the cyberpunk characters this year, and look more at doing something that would get more engaged in interstellar conflict later next year and down the road that could have those types of modifications? I think those are questions we're trying to answer over the next couple of weeks. So, it's quite an algorithm with a lot of variables on how we want things to function in the story, in the world that we're building. And so many answers are needed, and we're just going through it all day, every day, trying to figure this thing out. And we're making a lot of progress. It's just a lot of moving parts.
I'm laughing at this Z Zeppers comment
Z
for
Zeppers.
the seaplanes, from NFT Maker. But he also asked previously, what is your favorite faction and why is it Warhammer?
Well, I was with Rebellion when we allowed the team to be in a faction. Then we had a lot of people thinking that we were going to be partisan, because the factions are self-governed, and there actually is economic reward to a lot of things like the faction wars, whatever faction, a Zepper faction is the highest in about 5 weeks from now. Those faction members get the royalty wallet. So we needed to remove ourselves from that equation. But I was in the Rebellion, yes. And still at heart, even though I will not pay favor to the Rebellion, at heart, I'm still Rebellion. Probably get in trouble for that.
Did you so with everything that you have planned, do you have something that you are not necessarily it's out of your comfort zone, I guess you would say?
Out of our comfort, you mean kind of
like you're not sure if they can actually meet this, but they're going to strive for it type of thing?
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be, well, I mean, we're striving for, I want to say to the moon, but that's so cliche in crypto. I mean, we really are striving to go as absolute far as capabilities would allow us to. Is there kind of a realization that even just in terms of resources, like let's say that we get, the best, like 5 gaming studios, like AAA gaming studios that came on board. There's certain things you have to think of just in server resources that are required to generate and produce a real-time gaming environment. The amount of Amazon AWS power that you'd be using for the type of thing that you guys saw with Yahoo Corporation earlier, it's enormous. These games that have 5-10 million people playing them, they have to be generating hundreds of millions of dollars to sustain that. So there's things you want, but really when it comes down to it, you have to start peeling those things off. And you say, we can't, like, that's not even, like, you are not going to be able to just walk around and buy a cup of coffee or, play chess at the street corner, visit any building that exists and go explore that building. It's just unrealistic. So I think for us, it's more of determining this basic functionality of these basic interactive actions that we want to occur, and then porting them off. So like Zeppelin Raceway on Zeppelin Moon, you're not going to be able to leave the raceway, get on a car or a hover bike or something, drive over to the starport or airport, launch into space, actually drive your spaceship. Maybe drive's not the right word, but you guys get it. Across the solar system and land it on, like, that's not realistic. So how do you exit one component and enter another component? So I think there are things that I would be like, it would be totally badass if you could do that and stop and mine and do some things like that on the way. That's not very realistic, unless a big game studio saw value in this story and said, hey, we're really going to put our weight behind it. Then maybe something changes. But with a $2 or $3 million budget over the course of a few years, you can't do what takes hundreds of millions of dollars.
Got you.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Is there, as far as mini games and other things like that to generate revenue for yourself and the project, have you explored any sort of mini game aspect, I guess you would say, that you could introduce?
Yeah, certainly. I think there's some ideas out there. I think there's some interesting potential card-based game. There's been a lot of good ideas that have come up. The racing game is a good revenue generator. It's not something we view as profit center, but conceptually and functionally, that's being scoped so that in order to participate in a weekly heat, which moves you towards that monthly championship, there's a registration fee, and we haven't determined what that price, and who knows what ADA will be at the time. But let's say it's 5 ADA, and we can assume all 3,550 are not going to register every week. But let's say 1,000 did. Well, now you've got 5,000 a week in registrations for just, for something that's kind of on autopilot and is not very expensive to run. We would have to provide a substantial amount of that revenue to the pool itself. We want it to be very rewarding for the players. But I think as individual components like that roll out, we kind of get some sustainability in terms of paying for resources and overhead, and then make sure that our asset drops are spaced out enough to where there's not fatigue, but that those are also helping fund some of the bigger chunks of development.
I saw also that you had your Prosper coin or Prosperia coin.
Yeah.
And then you were also going to talk about like a secondary coin that would be used for something else. How will the two coins kind of work?
No, we had talked about doing something like that, but kind of got a legal go ahead. You have to be very careful, especially here in the US. There's no security involved here. It's a utility token. We're not promising, you're not getting any shares of the company or anything like that. So we had to make sure that we had all those ducks in a row. And that's why we kind of thought, well, if we do two at the same time, one is more utility social, the other one is more of a decentralized, then maybe that makes it more comfortable. But after some legal conversations, we're pretty confident that we can do all of it under the one token. So we did get PRSPR registered with Cardano. It is fully authorized. I think it's actually on Muesli Swap now. It's just it won't be verified until the 9th. So we really feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to do everything under that one token.
Are you, now you said you can already get some. Did you do a launch pad, or were you going to do a launch pad?
We built our own. It goes live on May 9th.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a pre-sale phase, which I think I'm not in charge of that. I've been focused on art and the art teams and everything. But Nathan, who's in charge of that, super nerdy kid, he's in like business, in business school and all that stuff. So he's kind of, that's his animal. But I think we've moved, I want to say 60 million tokens, maybe something in there. I may be overstating that, but those aren't released yet. You can't just flood the market with that kind of supply. So there's kind of a locked up release period for those. And then we do have another benefit for multipass holders is they get the portal's all built. When you log into the portal or connect your wallet in the portal, it determines the highest level of multipass you have, and then tiers you up on the pricing based on the multipass you have. And there's a pricing level with no multipass either. And so far, that's been a really good process to help raise money for development as well.
Now we have a question from Michael Phoenix. He says, will there be governments with Prosper token?
Yes, well, I mean, it's going to end up being relatively decentralized. So, maybe that's a question we need to get over to Nathan, let him talk about. I'm not the right person to ask that. I think he's doing all the things with it that you would expect or want in terms of transparency and seeing it fully decentralized. But also, speaking of governance, Prosperia is in many ways going to become very self-governed. The factions have elections, and there actually is kind of this government infrastructure. They're self-governed. They can do, like, we're seeing all kinds of stuff happen in factions where they're creating their own NFT sets around weapons and stuff that for logos. They're talking about setting up racing clubs, pawn shops, rental services to rent out Zeppers, which is amazing. That's exactly what we want to happen. So there's actually an election process that's going to be happening where factions have their governors, then they have representatives for the zones that they control, which they can lose or win through faction wars. They have senators. So there's a whole governing component being built into the Prosperian ecosystem. And I think we'd want to see that kind of, to the extent that it can. Again, this supply eventually has to become decentralized. Would like to see that kind of tinker with the governance of the token as well. But as far as the governance itself for the token, I'm not the right person to answer that for him, to being totally transparent. I'm over here working on the story and the art, and I have to trust parts of the team to work on their specialty. And if you ask me to do math, I'm going to fail the equation. So I stay away from it.
So you're saying that I could become the first person to bribe politicians?
Yes, you can.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
That is right up my alley. I love that. I always wanted to kind of.
It's funny. Someone the other day said, "Hey, I think this one faction's setting up its own Discord server. What are you going to do about it?" And I was like, "Nothing." That, if you truly want factions to be self-governed, then you get out of the way, right? And whatever they do, they do. That's the beauty of it. That's the way we want it to happen. But I do anticipate that there would be, there could be people who become wealthy in Prosperia. And that's the way the real world works. You don't have to like it you may not like it, but that's the way the world works. To me, it's fascinating to see how all that'll play out. And I'm loving watching it happen.
Hey, if you can't beat them, join them, right? Find out where the Discord is, go join them, and you guys have an interesting thing that I've read. The faction wars are based off of every month when you check out the floor prices of each of these Zeppers, correct?
Yes. So every Prosperian asset, except with the exception of the multipass, has a faction trait. And it's funny kind of watching our floor right now because our volume is really strong. But when I said earlier that we're uniquely unique, our community is trying to find the best ranked asset with its faction. Because there's a lot of volume. You're just not seeing it happen at the floor because everybody's very selective on what they want. So at the end of every month, there's a faction war, which we basically go snapshot the floor of all the factions across multiple secondary markets. And the faction with the highest floor gets the bulk of the royalties wallet airdrop to them. So it's a really interactive way to make buying and selling a little more fun, a little more community. If you go into the faction chats, which if you're not in a faction, you can't see it, but there's some serious strategy happening around this stuff on how to sabotage other factions, but also how to set their own faction up for success. And I think that's been a lot of fun as well.
Yeah.
So those are the faction wars. And then eventually, once our map of the space station is plotted, which we actually have it internally, we just haven't visually presented it. If you win that war, you would also perform a hostile takeover of a zone controlled by another faction. So it's economic warfare, but it's also territorial and geographical, which brings this whole other element into it.
I'm looking, and it's actually kind of spread out as far as, where these factions are. It's not like, all the bottom ones are peacekeepers or whatever, Iron Hands. It's kind of spread out, but I would imagine you would have to take random snapshots, or else people would just be like, okay, everybody at this time, dump all of your peacekeepers.
Yeah. Yeah, they've tried to. There's some sneaky stuff going on about how to sabotage other factions as well, which I think is great, but it definitely is going to create a surge in activity at a certain time every month, which is really cool, because that's one of the things that I hated before I had this project. Is when I was minting in other projects, it was all this huge buzz and all this hype, and then the mint is over, and if there wasn't a lot going on within a couple days after, all that hype just moved somewhere else. So I wanted to really find a way where we could build a bridge between big collection drops, to where it's fun and engaging, and economically viable to be a part of the project for the whole ride, not just showing up on calendars on dates when something's for sale.
These X's are the legendary ones, I'm assuming, because there's only 10 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, are there any benefits to the X class over the other classes?
Yes. So the reward pool in the races is the same for each class. So if it's whatever the amount is, let's say it was 500 ADA reward pool for each class. Well, you only have to race against 9 other racers if you've got a 1 out of 1. So your odds of getting a championship belt and winning that 500 ADA are pretty high. Plus, there's some pretty damn good bragging rights about having a gold-plated Ugly Bros Zepper. I think there's a Ugly Bros and a Invade. Yeah, there's Ugly Bros, Invada's, Black Tie Collective.
Let's see, what is this one?
That one is Prosper in Japanese.
Okay.
It's funny, we had to use the word Prosper as the tag because you can't use Japanese as a meta tag.
Huh. Is that... I don't even want to speculate on why not.
I don't know. I tried, but our dad was like, nope, you can't do it.
Huh.
Yeah, that's...
Oh, here's an Invada's. Yep, I see.
This is a hot take. Can I do a hot take real quick?
Oh, yeah. Hot take.
I'm not trying to say anything, but like I would buy probably 20 of these things before I buy one bubble jet. I'm going to be quite honest with you.
Well,
I'm not trying to throw shade.
It's funny that you mentioned that. There was a kerfuffle the other day and I wouldn't throw shade. I have nothing bad to say about them. They are a very big community. And there was a poll out there. See, our community, even though we're small, they will crawl over glass to support this community because we've just built that kind of vibe. So there was a poll out there on which was sexier, the Zepper or the Javelin. And we started winning this poll substantially. And so they went on their Discord and their Twitter and started firing all this firepower at this poll and never could win the poll. And it was just kind of funny on which one would win the race, the Zepper or the Javelin. And I actually thought when we get some time, I'd like to reach out to them and see if they'll give us a Javelin to make the slowest car in our game. And we'll give them a Zepper to make the slowest vehicle in their game. I thought that'd be funny,
That would be actually really funny. Just a little friendly shade being thrown back and forth.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Michael's asking now, do I need a desktop wallet to purchase ICO token with my multi-pass?
Yes. Yes, you will. You need to connect your wallet to the portal for it to see your multi-pass. So yes.
And then he said it's true. Grim, he smashed glass and made us crawl across it to vote on that poll.
Yeah, we rallied the troops. I don't think they were thrilled about it. It was funny though.
So are you from the Midwest?
I'm from Nevada.
Okay.
Originally, I lived in Chicago for 8 or 9 years and currently in Missouri just because it's where all my trucks go through the most.
Right.
Moving to Texas. But yeah, originally from Nevada. I actually wanted to go back to Vegas, which I don't drink or smoke weed anymore, which really sucks because weed stores are now like Apple stores. Yeah. So of course I go my whole life on the black market, So we wanted to go back out to Vegas, not for those reasons, just because I love Vegas. I love that you can just go to a grocery store at 3 a.m. You could literally go get anything you want, a nice meal, anything at any time of the day. But the housing market there is just like crazy. So we're going to Texas. I think you asked me where I live. See, that's what I do.
Where are you from? Where but
from, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's all a valid answer there. No weed. So yeah. I understand. Like I don't necessarily dabble or participate.
With weed? Oh, I have nothing against weed. None at all. I had to quit when my wife and I started running our trucks because there's so much federal, there's like, you can really have your CDL yanked for the rest of your life. And I was a CDL instructor for a while. So I quit for that reason. And now I think, okay, if having not smoked pot for 3 or 4 years, if I started now, instead of everybody in our community getting the results they want, I would become much better at Elite Dangerous. So that's why I'm not going to pick it back up.
Yeah. So you lived in Chicago. What was your favorite pizza shop in Chicago?
Oh, geez. I mean, if you want Chicago, I would have to be, and I lived on 14th and State. So I was like right in the, pretty close to Soldier Field.
Okay.
Giordano's is probably like, if you want, and there's some local haunts that you probably wouldn't know, but Giordano's is like, it's an experience, man. I mean, what they bring to you is not even a pizza. It is a cake of, you could order this large pizza at Giordano's and think, oh yeah, I'm about to smash that thing, and 2 slices into it, you're wondering how you're going to get home. So Giordano's is probably, I would say, a pretty good experience. And that's going to sound cliche because they're kind of a big outfit, but man, that pizza's insane. But I'm not from Chicago. I'm a diehard Cubs fan, but I actually kind of like New York pizza. I'll be honest with you, man. I would never say that in Chicago, but yeah, I like to actually be able to eat a little bit of pizza, not work my way through half a slice and look for help.
So yeah, I'm a pizza. What's up, we're freaky? So I'm a pizza guy myself, as people should know by now. And so, the Chicago style, the deep dish is like, okay, so Chicago is kind of known for deep dish, but honestly, they're thin crust rocks.
Yes.
And so,
for sure,
there's like a lot of great pizza shops. My favorite deep dish would probably be Lou Malnati's. Lou Malnati's is like, it's so good. I love it.
But the vast majority of people don't know what you're talking about.
Right. And
even I'm like, man, I wish I liked pizza maybe a little bit more. I don't even know what to say.
So are you a fan of is it Dave, the Barstool guy?
El
Presidente.
Yeah. I've seen his shows.
See all his pizza reviews.
I've seen his shows. I don't know. Like, I know what I like. You know what I mean? And so
he gets it down to like the sauce. Like Detroit has its own sauce. Like it could be more watery, less intense with its flavor, more salty. Like he really gets it down to, it's the science of the taste, which I think is interesting.
Did so you've been to New York? What is your favorite? Did you go to New York or whatever?
I've been to New York a few times.
Or you just like a New York slice?
Yeah, just a New York slice. Okay. Yeah, I'm not like a connoisseur. I couldn't tell you even where I got that slice. I think just more the consistency and
right, the foldability.
Yes, yes, exactly.
I gotcha.
I feel like a basic bitch over here. I'm like, I like mellow mushroom. I like Johnny's New York style pizza.
That's good. I mean, mellow mushroom. So we got mad mushroom up here, literally the same as mellow mushroom. But yeah, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Indiana, so that's kind of you wouldn't think like, but we're more of like a thin style crispy, crust or whatever, and
and home to one of my least favorite interstates, 70. Any interstate
70?
that has a 7 that starts with a 7, I do not want to drive anything across it.
It's not great.
No.
We do have a question actually by Grim, and I actually am wondering this myself. Will the races be fully automated by AI and you get to watch it, or will you be driving yourself?
Yeah, it's competition. You drive yourself. Is that Grim? I hope that's not the same Grim that's in our community. How do you not know that? Yeah, definitely. You're gonna control your vehicle for sure. And there's some other mechanics. I talked about this in our live the other day. Someone asked if you're gonna have rockets and stuff like that. While I think it would be fun to be able to throw bananas like in Mario Kart, it won't get that detailed, but you can do damage to other vehicles by direct contact, and their direct contact with you can bring down your health. And if you don't get hit, then you get more speed and things like, so there's some things that are worked into the game that I think are going to make it a lot of fun, but it's not like some 8-bit thing that you throw your 5 Ada at and, watch the computer decide who wins. Not at all. There's definitely going to be some skill involved for sure.
I'm imagining the, what is it? The Family Guy episode where they're racing and then all the cars just crash all at once as soon as the race starts, because they're making fun of a certain ethnicity.
Oh, I love Family Guy. It's literally my favorite show.
Yeah, do you have like a favorite racing game that maybe this took from? I'm gonna tell you mine. It's very obscure, old school, but it kind of it was this one stupid one called Mega Race.
Mega Race.
Oh, it was awful. You can look it up. It was terrible. Okay.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really perform well in racing games at all.
Okay.
Like Need for Speed, and I don't know what it is. But give me some Twisted Metal or something like that, and yeah, we're ripping shit up. But
Mega Race, awful. That game is awful. God, it's so bad. But you're traveling through space.
Yeah, that looks kind of like Mario Kart, doesn't it? I mean, that reminds me of Rainbow Road.
No.
Yeah, only not rainbow and
only cool.
I don't know. I don't like it, to be honest.
You don't like it?
No, I like. I think I'd prefer Rainbow Road, honestly.
Of course, when there was Rainbow Road, that was like state of the art, right? I mean,
yeah.
And you had to stay on it. You could get knocked off the track too.
Oh, that was the most frustrating map as a kid. Like not knowing how to drive, just
the holes in the road and everything.
Yeah, you'd always like randomly sometimes jump from like one loop to the other loop, and you'd be like, "Oh wow, I skipped it." You try to do it again, and you could just never do it again.
Yeah, my respect's coming back for Rainbow Road. Right. had to get reminded, but yeah.
But okay, so you're not much of a racing guy.
No.
My favorite ever race game was called Tokyo Extreme Racer 2. It was for Dreamcast. I loved it. Nick, do you have a favorite racing game? Everybody has to have a racing game.
Yeah. So like I didn't really like racing games, but I remember my best friend, he had a PlayStation 2 and I still had like a PlayStation 1. So I would go to his house and I would play Need for Speed. And I remember we were playing it and it was Need for Speed, I think Underground. It was with the it was like Blink-182 music and a bunch of like old school rock bands, and I was just getting like really into it, and he was really into designing the cars. So he would design the cars, do the spoilers, spend 30-45 minutes like making the car look cool, but he sucked at racing and like video games in general kind of. And so he would pass the controller to me and I would do all the races. And he would like hype me on as I was racing. I'd be like, I got it. We get all hyped. But I remember I was talking to him and I was like, this doesn't really make too much sense. Like, where are the cops? Why are there no cops? And then literally like a year or two later, they came out with Need for Speed 2 with the cops, like Most Wanted or something. And I was like, dude, they stole our idea. Like we're like 10 years old,
That's funny. And now you got GTA where you literally just build your own world where half of you are cops and you got the paramedics, you got the firefighters, the criminals.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But I played a lot of Mario Kart too. And I would invite my neighbor over Shout outs to Kevin, who definitely doesn't know who I am anymore because we split up when we were like 6. But
I remember when I saw the first time I ever saw a Nintendo, it was a neighbor playing Duck Hunt, and I was like, "What is this?" It was because what were we on, like Atari at the time, you know? So, or maybe was there Sega? There was not Genesis. That was, I don't. All I remember is when I first saw Duck Hunt, and then he said, "Well, you got to check this out. Let me put Mario Brothers on." I was like, "Oh my god, that was just game changing." Yeah, Duck Hunt. It was so stupid, but at the time, that was like that changed everything.
Yeah.
So back when the Pimp My Ride stuff happened, so I actually had like a portable TV in my car, like I would roll around with, and it was hooked up to a regular Nintendo, and I had the Duck Hunt gun, and so I'd be driving down the road like I can shoot inside my car with this Duck Hunt gun. Dude,
I
felt
should
like
have known you earlier in life.
And here's the thing, like it was the worst car ever. It was like a 93 Ford Taurus or whatever. My brother wrecked my previous one. I bought like a 2001 Ford Mustang GT Cobra. That was my first car. I worked like 2 summers to get it, and he wrecked it, like taking whatever the hell her name was out, and he was like, "Oh, I was trying to avoid a deer." He was taking a nice little chicane and like in a gravel road, and he lost it. He overcorrected, hit it. I already knew what was going on, and so
this is sounding like the gamer version of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas,
bro. And I'm telling you, I wanted to kill that guy. So my next car, I went from a 2001 Ford Mustang GT Cobra to a 94 Ford Taurus. I decided, dude, I'm going full degen on this. Yes, there it is. And bro, I had the fake spinner wheels on there with the hubcaps like on the outside.
Oh
like,
man,
dude, just rolling like an idiot. But
the Duck Hunt gun though, I mean,
I had a
that to
Duck
me
Hunt.
is the best part.
I had Duck Hunt inside there, dude, and like people legit wanted to ride in my car because I had a regular NES on there, and I had you could do whatever you wanted, and it was just cool. I had obviously neons on the inside, so everything would like light up and shit. Like, dude, it was pretty boss. I definitely did not prefer that over the Mustang, but it was a very close second in history for me.
Well, I'm glad we were able to reveal a very unique Duck Hunt story.
Yeah, sorry.
Mine wasn't near as good. I'm like, yeah, I was a kid and I saw Duck Hunt. You're like, dude, buckle up.
Dude, I remember because I'm from Massachusetts, and at 10 years old, I moved to Georgia. And, so that's like a 24-hour, 28-hour drive if you do it straight, And my dad would just have me and my brother sit in the back. And my brother, he was super young. He was probably like 3 or 4 years old. And his favorite movie was Elf. So he would just watch Elf on repeat over and over and over, and it would drive me insane. So I asked if I could get like some jerry-rigged, TV in there so that I could, play Ratchet and Clank on the way to Massachusetts. And yeah, we would set up a small little TV in there, and I would play Ratchet and Clank. But you guys ever play Ratchet and Clank? It's like one of my all-time favorite games.
I did play Ratchet and Clank. I was a little bit older at the time, so it was like kind of uncool for me to play Ratchet and Clank or whatever. But like, yeah, I did. I had younger cousins who were into it and stuff like that. Like for me, when I was like a teenager, it was Conker's Bad Fur Day, right? And so that was kind of like the I was like 14, 13 at the time, and so it like had risque stuff in there and whatnot, and so like that was the best back in the day. That was in Nintendo 64, and so, but then they had Ratchet and Clank come out. What else was there? There was another one that I never, Crash Bandicoot, never got into that.
Yeah, never got into that.
Jack and Dexter, never got into it.
Played Mega Man, I think.
Oh,
right around that time.
I did not like the normal Mega Mans, but when they came out with the handheld Mega Mans, it was like Mega Man Battle Network. Yeah. I loved Battle Network. It was like open world. It was the first like open world, and you could go around and collect all the cards. You could put the cards together to create like combination attacks, and I would just go around and I would try to find all the combination attacks. And so I would just spend hours not even progressing in the story, just grinding the little slot machine, trying to get this
And
one specific
now
card.
that's what the best games are, like you don't have to accomplish anything if you don't want to. Oh yeah, Randy says Contra was a great game. That's old school.
I feel like, and this is just me, okay, but I'm going back and I feel like games now, although they're more in depth, I feel like people are more spoon-fed the experience. Whereas with us, with like Double Dragon, Contra, like there was actually pretty difficult, especially Mega Man, right?
Legend of Zelda, though, when you dropped into a world and were told nothing.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. But even that was a part of like my childhood. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now it's like spoon-fed. It's like there's drop points everywhere, and like here's your destination, and it'll blink on the screen for you, and you're not supposed to figure things out, right? It's all just supposed to be spoon-fed for you, and so like,
that's true.
I don't think you could take a kid nowadays and put him into like a Zelda experience where everything's just like done, and have them be like, oh, well, that was worth it. You know what I mean? Like, try playing Contra. Sure. Try playing Contra now. Like, it's pretty freaking difficult, believe it or not. Like, and I just used to whip through it.
Just seeing those red like bullet bubbles reminds me of all the different, there was actual strategy in even what you were shooting, Now
that was, what did you call that? What did you call that? The three bubbles. I called it the spread shot.
Spread shot, yeah.
It's a shotgun. Correct?
But it only spread vertically because you couldn't, it was just, but I'm just saying, like, it was so simple, but strategic.
Right.
Well, at least you were mentioning GTA 5. I totally agree with you because, like, even in like GTA, you've got GPS, and it's going to map you exactly where you need to go. But at least some of the, like, they're trying to give you different worlds to switch back and, by playing different characters, trying to mix it up a little bit, but the story does direct you for sure. But the diversity of things you can do are vast in these new games, so they do have their pros, but there's not a whole lot of thinking to it.
Well, so
I mean, Dark Souls was a pretty difficult game, I would say, and it doesn't hold your hand.
It's a different sort of difficult. Like, that's just like,
sure,
here, we're going to put you against this asshole, and you're going to die 1,000 times.
No, not even that. I mean, that part's very difficult too, don't get me wrong. Right. But I played Dark Souls 1 and I had to end up looking at a guide. I was wandering aimlessly for like 4 hours, and I was like, dude, I don't have time as like a 25-year-old person like playing Dark Souls, doing nothing for 4 to 5 years, or 45 hours. Like, at some point I need to progress if I want to continue to play this game. So, it was actually difficult knowing where to go in this game.
I think so if you brought up a good point with GTA back in the day didn't have like a GPS, right? They did expect you to take out a map, right? And if you needed to find out where a certain spot was, you would have to look on the physical map of GTA, right? And so now you can try to do that, but what's the point, right? You can take off. Like, I think somebody did it in Red Dead 2, right? They wanted to feel the wild, wild west experience, right? And so they turned off the map controls and just kind of looked at the actual map, and they ended up not being able to read it because there wasn't enough information on there, right? And then some of their directions that they told you to go, like, didn't make sense, so it forced you to use the in-game parameters to find out where you need to go.
That does make me think, like, in GTA, because of the way the GPS and everything works now traversing the map is just annoying. You want to leave from where you're leaving from and get to where you're going because you want to accomplish something where you're going.
Check out the one on the right. The picture go up all the way on the right. What is that? What that is? What that is, homie? Oh,
It's
shit.
it's got a great background. Whatever they're using for that background is, it's a 1 out of 1. So, yeah, in GTA, it just it becomes annoying. Whereas it's the same in the real world too, though. And maybe I'm showing my age, but when I was a kid, driving from point A to point B was the vacation. There was so much to see between here and there. It could be a little place with dinosaurs or who knows what, but there was always stuff between point A and point B that you spent the majority of your vacation. Now it's how fast can we go over all that? Can we do a 45-minute flight and not see any of it? And so there's no thinking involved, there's no real adventure or journey. And I think it's the same in GTA. It's funny how we created this online world to amend the offline, and it's becoming the offline. It's the same. We're doing the same thing, and vice versa, in a lot of ways. Of course, you come back to crypto and Cardano, and there's these kids innovating and figuring out. For me, it was I'm going to work all summer to buy a system for my car, and they're making $150,000 in 20 minutes. So,
yeah,
it's crazy.
Jay Vara, he asks, most MMORPG games with economy run into issues. How do you plan to ensure a healthy economy in Prosperia?
Yeah, and I would say that's probably for not good reason, but because that's the most challenging. That's why we're doing that first. We're really trying to think through at the very beginning, which are we already an hour and 40 minutes?
Hour 35.
Yeah. A long time ago, we were talking about the spending the next couple of months just building kind of that backbone, because there's so many tripwires you can set up for yourself if you're not thinking this stuff through early on. And so that's kind of, I don't have all the magic answers for you. And I can't tell you that we're not going to make mistakes. It's always going to be an evolving learning process, but I will say that we're thinking that part through before now, not the art. In fact, we have a artist right now doing our environments already, like walking into environments and how walls and art and stuff like that's motion environments. So that stuff's in motion. It's in the works too, but we're not going to start implementing any of that stuff until we have a really good framework for how that ecosystem is going to work, because it's very complex, extremely you're building an entire market, not marketplace. I'm not talking about like a front end user interface where you go buy something, like a JPEG. I'm talking about markets, like you're actually making markets. How do you determine a business in zone 2 is affected by something that happens in zone 3, which may be a rebellion zone? How do you determine what economic effects, plus or minus, positive or negative, that has on the value of that asset? So it's very complex, and it takes a lot of thought. And how do you avoid issues? I don't think anyone has ever avoided issues. AAA games with hundreds of millions of dollars don't avoid issues. All I can tell you is that we are thinking about that part first going into this, and not going and building this world and saying, okay, now let's try and figure out that whole part, since people are able to log in and look at each other. That's the backwards way to do it. So I think we're doing it the right direction, and hopefully we can give it our best shot.
And everything can also be adjusted after this comes out. And sure, you don't want that to happen like for too long, because then things get unbalanced, but you can still always fix it at some point, right? So it's not like the worst thing ever, as long as it's found early.
As long as it's found early, and as long as you build a framework that allows you to make those adjustments. You don't want to back yourself into a situation where you're so dedicated to one closed circuit system that if it breaks, you have to start from scratch. So I think that's probably one of the biggest tripwires to try and preemptively avoid, is thinking through, is this pivotable? And as long as it is, then yeah, I think we can make shifts and minor adjustments, course corrections throughout the process.
So, when you have a history of video games, obviously, what would you say was one of your greatest accomplishments in video games? What was kind of like your biggest disappointments in video games?
Greatest accomplishment? Well, I feel like my accomplishments that felt better were the ones that happened younger. Like jumping over the flagpole in Mario, something so fundamentally simple and stupid today was monumental back then. I think now accomplishments, well, and we talked about it earlier, clean up when you kind of predicted my nature. Accomplishments don't have that kind of feeling anymore. You could spend days in Assassin's Creed Viking and finally be in a position to go attack this village and get X, Y, and Z. You go open up these big box, what are they, golden crates or whatever, get all your stuff out of it. Well, you had spent so much time to get to that, but did you feel that was a great accomplishment? I don't feel that way. I don't feel like the way that it did in games earlier. Maybe that was because of my childhood, or maybe it was because of the things we've been talking about over the last 30 minutes of how games just made you think and made you earn things in not such a, directed path. But it sounds not grand or extravagant, but probably I remember things like first figuring out how to jump over the flagpole more than I remember these big epic AAA experiences that you spend days trying to figure out. So that would I could probably think of a couple, but that would definitely be one. Because how many times did you try to jump over that flagpole?
Every time you got to the end, every single time.
Right.
But, I want to touch on it a little bit too, because, I think part of what you're saying is obviously right. They've handheld our games, but also, some of my greatest achievements that felt really good were from RuneScape. And it was this open sandbox game. You can do whatever you want. And when I first saw that, I was like, well, what's the point if everything is nothing and nothing is everything? Like, where do you start and why do you care? And, my friend, he was one of my best friends at the time. He got me into it. And I started playing it and I just wanted to be better than him. Right. So I was just trying to grind harder than he grinded. And it was just kind of like that battle back and forth between a friend. But then, he stopped playing and I was still addicted. And I was like, well, I want to like get this item that's a 0.005% drop. So I would grind this one monster for weeks. I literally grinded this. It was like a iron and steel dragons for like 3 months. I never got the item, never got it, but I still every day just grinded and grinded. And, now where I'm at and that I'm older, it doesn't really come from the grind for the item. It kind of comes from the grind of the skill. So the games that I really kind of got into were Fortnite, and I don't play it much anymore, but I spent like 3 months grinding like how to build really quick and how to like zoom in and like do like a peek shot. And now my game of choice is actually Rocket League and learning how to like air dribble the ball, which maybe you guys don't know, but having a car dribbling a ball, is really, really difficult. All right. And I still can't do it, but I've been playing the game for like, almost a year now. And when you finally do something cool that you've been practicing, it's like, yes. And it makes you want to play even more, I think. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah. And I think, talking about story arcs, to kind of arc back to the very beginning of this conversation, probably one of the things that I love about Elite Dangerous is that there is no grand closure, really. You're not operating under the assumption that you're going to accomplish some mass feat and build a wonder that can be seen from everywhere in the universe. That journey that we've been talking about that's missing so much today is the game. If that's you, but the travel you have to do to get a passenger from point A to point B, and all the things you're going to see and experience and possibly run out of fuel. The fact that you're in control of that entire trip and that you get to write the story and decide what to do between those 2 points is, I think, what makes that amazing and what we need more of. And that's really what the story of the project of Prosperia is. And hopefully what we're trying to accomplish is to make something that is more of an experience and a journey that's going to last years to come, not just that quick rush that you don't really feel a great sense of accomplishment after that short win, So anyway, I was trying to bring the story arc back because unfortunately I'm going to have to jump. I have a pregnant wife. We're due this week. So,
oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. This was amazing. Like, this is the best. If this was every YouTube discussion, it would be great because it sounds so less pitchy when you're just talking life, and I didn't, like I said, when we messaged, I was like, I don't want to go on your channel and shill the project. I want to go talk about,
do it. If there's one thing I can tell you, like, seriously, I know you have to go. I totally respect that. I appreciate you being on here. It was absolutely wonderful to talk to you. I feel like with your game, take what will work. And I think what happens is people get so set on structure that, it has to be structured. It has to have a finite answer. I really don't think so anymore. I feel like people want to be able to take their box of Legos and play with it. You know what I'm saying? People want to be able to create whatever they want. So like if you have a faction war and that happens to topple a building, and then all of a sudden that changes like your raceway, maybe adds different caves, other things like that. They had to figure out something. This can all be part of it. You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? So I think you're on the right track. You can put some things that are definitely like finite for like the lore aspect, but I think you have the right idea. You have a very solid foundation. I love the fact that you guys are docs. That's really great that, you're willing to come on here, show your face, tell us your name, like, where are you from? What do you do? You can tell you're like a real life person. So this is very like refreshing. So
good. I'm glad. Well, we've got a lot of work to do, and hopefully we can be a part of the conversation maybe 2 or 3 months from now and, come back and talk games again or something. I would love to do it. And we've got a channel as well. We're just starting for the project. So if you guys want to come on and show your channel anytime here in the future, our channel is not, again, people don't want to just be shilled all the time. This kind of conversation, I think, is really healthy. And I feel like I've been able to get the vibe of what Prosperia is across without really talking about Prosperia, so I think that's, you're more than welcome to come, hopefully help build your channel. I mean, your channel's already great, but anything we can do to help, we certainly want to do it, because this kind of conversation is art and we need more of it. And it's going to be helpful for Cardano and for the adoption and that we all want to see. And so love it. Thank you guys so much for the time and the talk, and let's go make things happen.
Hey, thank you once again, man, for coming on. I'll just do the little outro. Everybody go follow Prosperia. Go follow this man. I have his socials in the description below. And if any of this content helped you, give me a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. And remember to get outside, see your family, see your friends. We're here to make more money so we can spend more time with them. Until next time, guys. Peace.